The keynote speaker, Eric Guthrie, will be speaking about the future of business, how blockchain, cryptos, and AI are redefining professional development. Welcome, Eric Guthrie.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Eric Guthrie. It's an honor to be speaking in front of you today. Thank you for ADollarClass for this opportunity to present. I'll tell you a bit about myself and then I'll jump right into it. The introduction was spot on. Attorney with the Cogent Law Group, a partner with the Cogent Law Group. I wrote the book Blockchain or Die, Amazon #1 bestseller 7 times, and a director of training programs for the Government Blockchain Association. I've done speaking all over the world, and this has become my main way I do my professional development. And I'll tell you my story, so hopefully you can learn from that. I learned about Bitcoin in 2016. I was in the back of an Uber, and this story really communicates how you can learn things when it's not even part of what you're being engaged in. And the Uber driver told me about his use of Bitcoin in gaming. Didn't pay much attention to it, but he told me he made a lot of money off of it when he sold it for like 50 cents. So fast forward about a year later, I'm at a retirement event and some folks talking about Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin was worth $3,000 at the time. And I was like, wow, to go from 50 cents to $3,000 is very impressive. I've done a lot of investment in various investment vehicles, commodities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. So I decided to research it, and I spent 3 days solid, barely ate, barely slept, just reading about this, learning about it. And I said, at the end, I'm in. But here's where it gets part of this presentation. I was not just going to be part of it from an investment standpoint. I wanted to be part of it from a professional development standpoint as well. So I decided to incorporate not just Bitcoin, but blockchain technology into my career. And the first thing I did was I just learned as much as I could. I'm going to try to have this be a really active learning session for you. And the 3 main points I have are learn, network, and use. So we're in the learn phase. I learned as much as I could. I read as much as I could, and I tried to understand as much as I could. But I also had to figure out how to incorporate it into what I do as an attorney, as a trainer, as a global trainer. And I really learned how to create those opportunities for myself. And that's when I get to phase 2, network. Back then, there weren't that many networks. It was just kind of starting out. Now there's a whole lot more. But I joined organizations where I learned from some folks that were in even before me, but also some folks that were doing this full time. And that network really developed my abilities to really incorporate that into my legal and training career. And that's how I got involved with the Government Blockchain Association. And part of that network, a key point I want everyone to really understand is volunteering is important. If you don't have the experience or you don't have the knowledge, the best way to get involved is to volunteer. And in that way, you can learn from the other folks real time and become engaged with whatever that technology is, whether it's blockchain, crypto, or AI. Volunteering wasn't something that happened overnight. It took probably a couple of years to really get the experience I needed. But in the meantime, I was writing this, right? And that's when you get to use, right? So we discussed learn, we discussed network, now we're going to discuss use. And use is important because you can do all the learning, you can do all the networking, but if you don't use it, then all you've done is really just an academic exercise. So this last part is really where the rubber hits the road. Now, there's many ways you can use it, but in part is based on your skills, your ability, and your time to be able to commit to this. So for me, writing a book, doing book signings, public speeches, and I began to get clients. Writing a book is an excellent way to really put out, it's like a super business card, right? Because you're marketing yourself without even marketing itself. Your book is doing the work for you. And footnote, my next book, Blockchain or Die Harder, is coming out next month. So the other thing about use is you've got to stay current. You cannot rely on what you learned last year or year before. You've got to be prepared what's happening tomorrow. So when you're in the use phase, You have to really put yourself in a position to be on top of all the information you can while you're networking yourself. Now, that doesn't have to be a book. You can do blogging, you can do video blogging. You can actually create, if you have the experience and time and the folks behind you, you can create your own cryptocurrency or your own blockchain. In that sense, you're really becoming a super user, because now you're creating a product that has monetization to it. It's going to make money. The book doesn't really make me that much money. The book puts me in rooms with people to make more money with them, right? Clients, large corporations, et cetera, not just US, domestic as well, right? So the use portion is so important. And what I advise folks to do in the use section is to just be creative. Use your skills, right? You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to be a programmer. I've known folks that have used this kind of environment to create products that are good for event planning, like this event we're doing right now. I've known folks that have used this to do music. I've had clients that I've been helping put their music on blockchains and on NFTs. So they're benefiting from it. They don't know how to code, they don't know how to use it, but they partner with the people that do to put their product out there. And that's how they really impact their professional development. I want to say one thing real quick about professional development. If you are someone that's interested in bringing this to your job, not just to be an entrepreneur, you can do that too. There are companies out there that would really love to be able to use blockchain or AI or crypto. But you know what the answer I get most commonly about it? I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to use it. And then you say, well, let me help you incorporate it into your business, right? If you're an employee, it may mean you became a team leader. You may become a manager of the project, right? And if it's successful, you have now set yourself apart from everybody else because you brought a new technology into the business and you've created a professional development path for yourself to achieving higher employment status at that company. And the really important part is this: you really have to sell your company on the value proposition on whatever that technology is. So whether it's crypto, blockchain, or AI, you have to tell them why it's so important. What's the benefit to them? What's the value to them? Because people tend to not adopt what they don't understand. You have to help them understand, which is probably one of my greatest amounts of time I spend with new clients, is helping them understand not just the basics, but the intricacies of what we're about to get into. Not just from a legal side, but also from a business development side as well. Now, once they understand that, they're more on board. It's that process that takes some time and some communication and showing your knowledge, what you learned in the use and the network side. If you do not have the ability to do all those things yourself, you can go back to your network that you created. And I use coders. I use CPAs all the time that have experience in the crypto and blockchain world. I use a lot of folks in my network to bring to my clients to say, this guy can do this woman can do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the network also becomes your ability to bring in new clients, a new business, or to even bring it to your company and use it to make a professional development path for yourself. I'm going to close out with a few things. AI, it has become a monster of a technology. And I say that because it's really taken all the predecessors, the internet, advanced computing, et cetera, and it's brought it all together. And in a way, AI is becoming more of a user-friendly technology than blockchain. Why do I say that? Well, because you can use AI so seamlessly. You can just go on Gemini or ChatGPT and just start typing in, and you're using AI. You don't have to download a wallet. You don't have to download MetaMask. You don't have to create cryptos or tokens. You're already doing it, but you're doing it in a way that's much easier. User adoption and user interface are two very important terms when it comes to new technologies. And if you have the ability to show people, like I think that I do, how to improve user adoption, user interface, you've made yourself valuable you have added to your professional development skills. AI has become so important now. If you go on job boards and you type in AI, you will see a whole string of jobs that are available for you to apply for in the AI world. The question is, do you qualify for them? Well, here's where we go back to our 3 bullet points. Learn, network, and use. If you're able to learn the AI protocols and how to use AI, if you build an AI network, well, guess what? You may learn about the jobs in the network. And if you use it, that experience can be used to show you're qualified for a job. I can't really, speak enough about the learn, network, use components, because they really do create opportunities for you from a professional development standpoint, whether you're an entrepreneur or it's part of your employment objectives to, achieve higher heights in your employment. So I'll tell you another story about the learn, network, and use. I had a client of mine that he was very, very new to the blockchain and crypto space. And he was a client by training, not by entrepreneurship. And he took my course and he got a certification. And then he said, I'm gonna take this to my job and I'm gonna see what happens. This is going back when I was teaching courses more in person. Then he reached back out to me and said, Eric, I took this to my employer and they're interested. What should I do? And I said, well, and there was no charge for this. It was totally something I volunteered to do. I said, let's create a business case for your employer. What does your company do? How does your company operate? What are the company challenges? And how can blockchain solve it? So we put together a blockchain use case for the employer. And he presented it. And they were extremely impressed with what he presented. At that point in time, we said, well, now you have to figure out what it's going to cost to do a blockchain product for them. So we had to go back and then do a cost analysis, which really wasn't very expensive, because the first thing we did was we said, okay, we need a development team. So we created a list of people we needed to be on the team. On that team, we had a developer, we had a communications person, we had a finance person, and I think we had somebody from legal to make sure that all of the laws were being properly followed. That team created the genesis, the seed for their first blockchain project. I took that as a really good test case for how you can take this to your employer and you can use it to be able to further your career with that employer. One of the morals of the story is, one, other than learn, network, and use, is take that chance. Reach out to that person you think that's going to be receptive to what you're doing, right? And have all of your ducks in a row, right? If you don't have all your ducks in a row, you're not going to get past the second sentence, right? You have to have something in writing, have something written down so they can show how serious you are and you've done your homework. And once you've done that, you put yourself in what I would call rarefied air, right? Because they know now you're serious and they're going to pay attention to you. So that story is really important, because if you're on the employment side, that's a roadmap for how you can actually begin to move the needle for your professional development at that company. Now, from the AI standpoint, it's a little different, because you don't have to educate them so much on blockchain technology. You know what I found most interesting about educating employees about AI is the fear that AI is going to remove jobs from their company. From my perspective, there is probably some truth to that, but that's not the full story of AI, right? The full story of AI is AI still needs human interface. AI still needs human involvement, right? So while it's going to streamline and make things more efficient, if it's bringing in new business, if it's creating new efficiencies in your organization, then guess what? The employees can do other stuff that needs to be done that they were doing when things were less efficient. So it really can expand things from a efficiency standpoint, but also from a profitability standpoint as well, right? So from what I always preach with AI is the AI is not necessarily a threat to jobs. Here's the threat to AI. The threat to AI is companies that don't use it against companies that do use it. Because the companies that are using it, I guarantee you, are having the advantage in the marketplace, right? And that's the message with AI, a little more so than blockchain, because it's easier to understand and to get involved with AI, right? But if you're in professional development, if you're really looking to develop yourself, AI is another way you can do it. You can do both lanes. I can say it's a little challenging to do both lanes because there's just so much to learn. I'm not even going to get into quantum computing because that's a whole nother conversation. There are certain connections between blockchain and AI. There are blockchain companies with AI components that have a cryptocurrency. So all three kind of come into one place. Not that many, but they exist out there, right? I don't even use AI that much. My primary focus is crypto and blockchain, but I am ramping up my AI because I can tell you right now, it's going to be a major force in the corporate world, in the small business world, in the government world, in the nonprofit world, in the collegiate university world. There's going to be AI classrooms. I'm actually designed an AI blockchain training. Right now, I'm working with some universities on to incorporate as a certification course and then perhaps a degree course. Start small. I'll tell you this story. There was one class where I actually have people create blockchain and crypto products and projects, kind of like Shark Tank, if you will. They develop it and then we critique it. And they developed this blockchain crypto product that it involves satellites and it involves every cell phone on Earth. So I just sat there and I was like, I said, think small. And so then when we were done, I said, okay, let me answer this question. How are you going to get these satellites up into space? And I said, and this is before SpaceX and the other, I said, you need to have a partnership with NASA. And I can tell you right now, the product use design is going to cost you about $100 million. So when I said think small, right? So start small, because what happens is, and this is another really important lesson I'll share with all of you, not just from my client perspective, but from other attorneys that I talk to, as well as venture capitalists. The number one reason why blockchain companies fail is lack of funding, lack of resources. So be smart when you're designing your project or when you're putting together something for your employer, because if you put together a $20 million project for a company that's worth $20 million, it's going to get a hard no, right? So you want to start small and build from that smallness to greater things. Because if you start too big, if you start at the top of the price and top of the technology and top of the way it's supposed to be used, you're setting yourself up for failure. So start small, and that way you can build from that. If you can start projects that are easy to accomplish, guess what? You take that win and you go on to the next bigger one, and you take that win and you go on to the next bigger one. Because starting small gives you the ability to create successes faster and easier with less money, and those wins create more successes. I'll close with this: learn, network, and use. I have never seen that formula fail with any of my trainees or any of my clients. Okay, where I've seen it fail is where people try and not do one or the other. If you don't learn and you start networking, people are going to say, this guy doesn't know anything, this one doesn't know anything. If you learn and go right to use, you don't have a network to rely on. You don't have people you can call to answer questions. You don't have people you can call to kind of bounce things off of. You don't have a network where you can use to say, I need this, I need that, right? And then if you learn and network but don't use, again, you just engage in an academic exercise. And if you want to do that, that's entirely fine, right? And that's up to you to make that choice. But you're not going to get engaged in true professional development, true entrepreneurial success if you don't use. Use is where it all comes together, right? You don't have to write a book. You don't have to, do any of these others. You don't even have to create I haven't created one crypto yet. I'm actually working on my first one right now with a client. We're doing a partnership, but I've been involved in this space since 2017. I have not created one crypto yet until recently, because I didn't have an idea that I thought would work. Because here's the other thing I'll say. Do not create something that already exists unless you can do it way, way better, right? Because there's some folks that come to me with all these ideas, and I have 3 tests. 1, would I use it? Now that doesn't hit every crypto or every business pitch, but that's the first one. 2, is it something that gives benefit to the business or to the global community, right? What's the benefit? Does it solve a problem, or does it make more efficiencies? And 3, is it affordable? Again, think small, right? If you're coming at me with this big project, and I say, great, how much money do you have? Well, I really don't have that much. You really want, then I would advise folks that don't have a lot of money to go on the informational side and do the blogging and do the the networking and get involved that way. And maybe you'll find someone, a VC or angel funder, that will be able to help you with your project. But clients that come to me with no money, that with this big idea, it's not going to go anywhere, because you need money to really make these kinds of things happen. So Sarah, I will close there, and I will be ready for questions whenever the room is open for them.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eric Guthrie, again for that informative and engaging presentation. I'm sure we all know to learn, network, and use now.